Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm Tony Colucci. I'd like to welcome you to the February 3rd, 2021 meeting of the Western New York Power Proceeds Allocation Board, and also welcome my fellow board members, Dennis, Brenda, Paul, and Deanna, and of course, our helpful staff from Empire State Development and New York Power Authority. This meeting has been scheduled, as you know, and duly noticed in accordance with the open meetings law. It's being conducted via video Zoom conference, I believe in accordance with the relaxed open meetings law requirements in that regard. Wouldn't you say, Karen? I got a thumbs up on that for those of you who didn't watch the screen. As you know, we distributed prior to today's meeting a board packet of materials, and among those materials is a proposed agenda. Unless there are any changes to the agenda, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as proposed.
Mr. Chairman, Brenda McDuffie, I'll make that motion to approve the agenda as proposed in the packet.
Thank you, Brenda. Do I have a second? Dennis Elsenbeck is raising his hand and saying words, but his microphone is off, so I'll consider that to be a second. And I ask for all those in favor to say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Karen, it would appear as if that important motion carried unanimously. As you know, prior to our meeting today, we've gotten together with staff individually and reviewed some of the matters that we're going to be considering here today. And among other things, we have disclosed to staff whether or not there are any conflicts of interest that might be associated with any of the applications that we're being asked to consider today. As I understand it, Deanna has a conflict with respect to the application for the Center for Kashmir project.
That's correct. That's correct.
And Dennis Elsenbeck has a conflict with the Plug Power application. Also correct, Dennis. You can hit the space bar, and if you hold the space bar while you're talking, your microphone will actually work. Dennis. Okay. Or I can just continue to interpret your nods, which I'm happy to do. Anyway, are there any other conflicts that anyone has become aware of since conferences that you've had with staff that we need to disclose at this time?
No.
Nope.
Thank you.
No.
Very good, thank you. Also in your packet of materials were the meeting minutes from our October 7, 2020 meeting. I will now entertain a motion to approve those minutes as presented.
Make the motion to approve them.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Karen, it would appear as if that too passed unanimously. Moving on to the next item on our agenda is a fund update. Mr. Smith, on behalf of NYPA, can you give us that information, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, you have in your packets the Western New York Economic Development Fund update for December of 2020. I'd like to review that with you now. Total deposits to the fund to date are $41,746,000. Total interest earned on deposits to date amounts to $797,368, making total funds deposited equal to $42,543,368. As to expenditures, to date, there has been no expenditures for administrative expenses. Total disbursements to grantees amounts to $35,295,148, leaving a current fund balance equal to $7,248,219. As to awards for standard projects, $32,769,976 have been awarded. For energy projects, $5,327,439 has been awarded, making total fund benefits awarded equal to $38,097,415. All of this makes the total fund benefits available to be awarded by the allocation board equal to $4,445,953. As to energy-related projects, a total of $5,327,439 has been awarded for this category. By statute, 15% of the fund is dedicated to energy-related projects. The fund benefits currently available to be awarded for energy-related projects prior to today is $934,461. Today's recommendations amount in total to $1,895,000. This is broken between standard projects amounting to $395,000 and energy-related projects amounting to $1,500,000. As to the power that supports this program, estimated unallocated EP and RP to date amounts to 154 megawatts. Estimated allocated but unused hydropower to date amounts to 33 megawatts, making the total estimated unutilized EP and RP to date equal to 187 megawatts. There's additional detail in that report on the second page. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Do any of the members of the board have any questions of Mr. Smith on this topic?
No.
I have none, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Thank you. We don't need to take any action on that. The information will simply be recorded in our minutes. I'd like to move on to the awards of fund benefits from the Western New York Economic Development Fund, round 27. Again, I'd like to ask Richard Smith to review the staff's recommendations in that regard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, we have the Eastman Machine Company. Staff is recommending that the Power Proceeds Allocation Board recommend a fund benefit award of $170,000 to Eastman Machine Company to add 7,400 square feet to its existing building and reconfigure existing space. Eastman Machine is an S corporation that manufactures a variety of handheld manually operated fabric cutting machines and fully automated computerized cutting and plotting systems that match specific customer needs and provide solutions for virtually every cutting environment. Products are sold in domestic and foreign markets, both directly and through a network of agents and affiliated companies. More than 125 years ago in Buffalo, George Eastman developed the first fractional electric motor that could be mounted on a platform to serve as a cutting base. The motor was attached to a reciprocating knife mechanism, and the first electric fabricating cutting machine was born. It ended tedious manual cutting room labor and revolutionized the apparel industry. Charles Stevenson, an early investor, acquired full ownership of Eastman Machine in 1898. After 5 generations, the Stevenson family still owns and operates the business. Project costs include construction of an addition comprised of warehouse space, an entrance lobby, loading dock, reconfiguration of the existing facility, and the purchase of storage racks and workstations, which will allow the applicant to hire 6 additional employees over the next 5 years. Specific aspects of this project support a recommendation favoring a fund benefit award. The company currently uses 1 loading dock for both shipping and receiving activities. Adding a second loading dock will result in faster lead and delivery times, which will allow for increased competitiveness. Reconfiguring the plant will result in increased and more efficient productivity that is less prone to error. The project supports the creation of 6 full-time positions at the project location over the next 5 years. The applicant partners with Goodwill of Western New York and the Northland Workforce Training Center. As such, new positions will be made available to all individuals having the required skills, including underrepresented groups residing in the area. The project aligns well with the Western New York REDC strategies that leverage the region's advantages in key strategy sectors, including manufacturing. I'd be happy to entertain any questions that the board may have.
Thanks, Richard. Any questions from our board members on this particular application in addition to the information that was shared with you during your meetings with staff?
Mr. Chairman, I don't have a question, but I'd like to share with my fellow board members that, it's wonderful and it bodes well for our economy when we have a longstanding company that is actually manufacturing, providing good quality jobs, and continues to grow in this marketplace. For those of you who don't know, it's located downtown Buffalo, so they're in pretty much a property that there's very limited ability to do any growth and development, but they're making it work, and they're working on behalf of our community. And so I would like to move this project for approval at this time.
You saved me the need of asking for a motion. Thank you, Brenda, and thank you for your comments. Do I have a second?
I second it.
Any other comments or questions before I call a vote? Very good. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? It would appear, Karen, that motion has passed unanimously. Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our second project for consideration is Plug Power Incorporated. Staff is recommending that the Power Proceeds Allocation Board recommend a fund benefit of $1,500,000 to Plug Power to support construction of a 40-ton per day green hydrogen production facility at the Science and Technology Advanced Manufacturing Park in Genesee County, New York. That's known as STAMP for short. Plug Power is a C corporation originally formed as a joint venture between Edison Development Corporation and Mechanical Technology Incorporated in the state of Delaware in 1997. The company is focused on hydrogen and fuel cell systems used to power electric motors, primarily in the electric mobility and stationary power markets, in a manner that addresses climate change and energy security. Plug Power created the first commercially viable market for the hydrogen fuel cell. As a result, the company has deployed over 30,000 fuel cell systems and become the largest buyer of liquid hydrogen, having built and operated a hydrogen network across North America. Plug Power intends to produce green hydrogen in Genesee County using a process called electrolysis and provide it to the New York region for on-road and off-road applications. This will facilitate the adoption of zero-emission freight transport and logistics handling equipment that utilize fuel cells and clean energy that is manufactured in New York. Currently, the company obtains most of its hydrogen by purchasing it from suppliers for resale to customers. As Plug manufactures fuel cells in New York, this project will create a vertical supply chain, enabling Plug to provide clean hydrogen to the systems it builds here. Project costs include construction of the production facility, a secondary electric substation, machinery and equipment, land, infrastructure, and other costs, which will allow the applicant to hire 62 employees at an average annual salary of $75K. Several aspects of this project support a recommendation favoring a fund benefit award. It represents the first tenant to locate at STAMP, which will likely lead to additional development in this industrial park. The project requires significant capital investment in both the hydrogen production plant and park infrastructure. Costs include a main substation, which is not currently available at STAMP, but it is required to serve the applicant and future tenants. Any financial assistance to the project reduces associated risks. This will establish a nationally recognized green hydrogen production center. It will be the first facility in the Northeast United States and one of the largest of its kind in the United States. As such, it will serve as a catalyst for the development of entrepreneurial and innovative projects associated with the build-out of a green hydrogen infrastructure as our economy continues to decarbonize. The plant will produce zero-emission green hydrogen for use in freight transportation and material handling equipment that will displace diesel and compressed natural gas. Reduced use of fossil fuels lowers direct environmental and health impacts of air particulates and other pollutants, and helps to mitigate indirect impact on the environment caused by climate change. Lastly, this project aligns very well with key strategies and priorities included in the Finger Lakes Forward United for Success plan, including it supports next generation manufacturing and technology. It creates manufacturing jobs with attractive salaries and benefits in a disadvantaged area. It will employ people with vocational and associate degree level education from local area community colleges who will be representative of the local community, including residents of the Tonawanda Reservation and other underrepresented populations. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Richard? Hearing none.
So, Mr. Chair, just a question.
Sure.
This would potentially go against our responsibility to set aside 15% of our resources to energy-related projects, which I think bodes well. Yes.
Yes, Brenda,
I
that is
see you
correct.
nodding.
Yeah, we're actually going to target the secondary substation, which is electrical infrastructure. So it
Excellent.
would qualify.
Super.
Any other questions for Richard? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adopt the staff's recommendation to award $1.5 million to Plunk Power, Inc.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chair. I really like this project. It does all the things that were summarized by Mr. Smith for an area of our community that's eligible for proceeds investment. And so I'd like to make a motion.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Deanna. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
And let the record reflect that Mr. Elsenbeck is abstaining. Richard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our last project today is for with the Center for Kashmir. Staff is recommending that the Power Proceeds Allocation Board recommend a fund benefit award of $225,000 to the Center for Kashmir, Inc. to establish a museum featuring over 600 original Kashmir paintings, etchings, drawings, and artifacts. It plans to locate in Niagara Falls in a 100-year-old church that was purchased by LSNY Holdings, also owned by the applicant, that will lease the space at an annual rate of $1 per year for the next 5 years. The center will function as a museum and library of the Himalayan region of Kashmir. Primary offerings will consist of an art gallery, library, audio-visual stations, hall of memory, small movie theater, and a museum, shop, and cafe. The Center for Kashmir was established in 2020 as a 501c3. Its collection is valued at approximately $2 million and represents the largest of its kind available outside of Kashmir. It would be leveraged as a tourist destination to capitalize and augment existing international tourism to Niagara Falls. The center will provide a place of learning and understanding about the Kashmiri people. It will also partner with local colleges, universities, and other institutions to help foster academic and artistic interactions with artifacts dating back to 3 BCE. The total project is calculated at $1.365 million and includes substantial repairs to the building's exterior, purchases of displays, lighting, audio-visual equipment, furniture, a security system, and other related costs. Several aspects of this project support recommendation favoring a fund benefit award. Despite proposing to invest $615,000 in equity, the applicant requires additional funding to adequately capitalize the project. The project involves redevelopment of a 100-year-old church, which is listed on the National Register of Historic Places, and located in Niagara Falls Gateway District, close to other significant tourism venues and where renewal is a priority. The applicant intends to complete its redevelopment project by the end of 2021 and open its doors to the public soon thereafter, which may help to mitigate negative impacts caused by COVID-19. Outside of Kashmir, there is no venue that possesses the wealth of artistic materials offered by the center. As such, the project creates a unique cultural asset that supports diversity, equity, and inclusion in the city of Niagara Falls. There are approximately 1 million South Asians in the Greater Toronto area that will find a South Asian cultural and historical museum of great interest when cross-border traffic has been reestablished. The project is supported by such local organizations as USA Niagara Development, Destination Niagara USA, Niagara Global Tourism Institute, and others. It aligns well with the Western New York REDC tourism strategies and priorities, as Western New York visitors spent approximately $757 million in Niagara Falls in 2018. It also aligns with New York's current focus on safely reopening businesses with a special emphasis on bringing back the arts. Approval is recommended in accordance with the terms included in the recommendation memo, which you have in your packets. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Any questions for Richard? Richard, I have one.
Sure.
To what extent is the pro forma that has been presented by this applicant dependent on foot traffic during the first 24 months of its operation?
Right, and forgive my video here, I'm being blocked by the sun a bit. So the applicant did have a feasibility study completed, which indicates that they will have to make a go of it, of developing relationships with several tourist-related organizations up in Niagara Falls in order to attract regional interest. So Discovery, the shuttle, for example, and other like organizations are going to be very important to them achieving success in that interim period.
I guess my question is, to what extent, assuming that they get those relationships, to what extent does their success from a business sustainability standpoint rely on foot traffic? Just because you have the shuttle doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have people walking in the door.
Yeah, I think a great extent, Tony. It's obviously going to be dependent upon local traffic, regional support.
So let's just assume for the moment that COVID is with us in some form or mutation for the first 12 months of this museum's operation. How would they propose to make a go of it?
Well, I think there's one mitigator before we get into that, and that is the project itself is going to take the next 12 months in order to complete. So they're not planning on opening their doors until sometime after December of 2021. Now that said, I think then your question would apply to that next 12 months.
Yeah, sort of like where we were last year at this time when we thought that this was going to go away on April 12th. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I mean, that's going to require a crystal ball. We are in uncharted waters here, right?
So is there a need for us to approve this today, or can we wait until we get closer to that start date?
Well, I think it's going to take him a year to construct this. So
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. It's going to take what?
I'm sorry. They're planning on taking a year to reconstruct the building. So without the $225,000, they're going to have to wait and figure that out.
So they can't do the deal. They can't do this project unless our $225,000 is contributed.
They need that money in order to start, I believe.
That's less than 15% of the total cost, right? Right?
Yep.
Where are they getting their working capital from?
So there's a number of organizations. There's 615,000 coming from them. Let me just grab the
The
source.
working capital, not the construction capital. Like, how are they going to pay their bills after they start operating?
They have $71,000 in working capital incorporated in their uses, their sources and uses. That could come from a number of sources. Private investment. The Cataract Fund has approved $273,000 to support the project. There are private donations amounting to $195,000 also pledged to support the project. So outside of our dollars, there's an additional $57,000 that they are working to close.
Okay. I don't want to monopolize all the questions. Does anyone else have questions of Richard?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, when I reviewed the project, I think we all have the same concern relative to what we know is going on in the travel and tourism industry. It's probably one of the most affected sectors in our state economy relative to the pandemic, and certainly in Western New York. I made a decision to move the project because it is my understanding, or I'd like to offer a motion if there are no other questions or comments, because it is my understanding that we don't actually provide our resources until all the other resources and demonstration of the project being able to be moved forward. So what that says to me is our dollars are the last dollars in. And if for some reason none of the other funding streams came through, or there was some major change or COVID, we all are hopeful and prayerful that it will be resolved. If all of those things don't happen, then unfortunately, if we approve the project, we still wouldn't give them the money. If they could not demonstrate that they had a viable project and had met all the other conditions and standards that are laid out in their application. So that moved me to say, we're all hoping for recovery. They've got to build out for a year. I also looked at the fact that this is a historical church that's located in a area that we really want to develop in the Falls as part of an overall plan. And, like I said, we're all helpful and prayerful in the next year that we can get back on track in terms of people having the level of mobility that we had prior to COVID, albeit with, mask on and all of those things. But it is an investment that we would be taking a risk, but I think it's a prudent risk on because of the timetable that's been outlined and the conditions of our investment.
I appreciate you giving me that explanation, Brenda. And to be clear, my concern isn't related at all to the merits of the proposed project, nor is there a concern on my part that they're somehow going to lack the funds to complete the construction phase of this project. My concern relates to what happens after they open the doors. And I'm sure it goes without saying, but I'll say it for the purposes of being clear. Museums have been struck particularly hard as a consequence of the COVID-19 pandemic. And while we would like to think that by the time the doors of this place open in 2022, we will be free of the burdens that have become associated with that pandemic, not a single one of us on this Zoom call or on CNN could tell you that that will be the case. And as a consequence, I feel as though we're taking an unnecessary risk beyond the ones that we would normally take as we provide money for projects that are, for the most part, all well-intended, especially one where when you keep reading almost daily how the hospitality business or industry in Western New York has been affected. And the stuff that's most affected in hospitality happens to be the travel industry, which is what's required in order to get people to come to a museum of this nature. It's not you and I going to dinner on Delaware Avenue in downtown. It's somebody coming from someplace other than the United States or Western New York. And for example, one of the characteristics that Richard commented on was the population of Canada that is likely to be interested in this particular museum. The border is going to be closed for half of this year. It may be closed for next year. We just don't know that. And, in some ways that inures to our benefit, right? The Blue Jays played in Buffalo last year, but in some ways that has really deterred from economic activity that we would all like to have happen. And so that is the concern that I have. That is the one that I articulated during our meeting with staff. And I've made it my statement on the record at this point. So any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I disagree with you 100%. If they even get it built and it bellies up in 3 months, at least you got a brand new building, pretty much. It's a redone building. I've talked to the mayor of Niagara Falls. I don't know if you have, and he's all for it. I mean, he's got all his jobs right now stalled except for this one. The only one that even you just said would get done. The Blue Cardinal job is stalled. The Sunel's job is stalled. He's lost 3 hotels. They're all stalled. This one could actually go. He's all for it. I mean, you could say that about building a hotel now. If the tourist thing is down and somebody needed financing for a hotel, we're going to tell them no because it might be closed next year. That doesn't make much sense. I mean, they got almost all their financing here. How many jobs have we seen held up for years because of something like this? They only need 57,000 more if we give them this money. That's crazy not to give it to them. If anything, I would put a time frame on it. Say, look, you got to have it built by this time or you lose your money. That's what I would do, and they'll get it done. But you're right. Museum.
Paul, I certainly appreciated your opinion right up until the point where you implied that I was crazy. But beyond that, you're
thought that was a known fact.
Certainly able to disagree with me.
Huh?
Mr. Chairman, if it's of any consequence, Paul's comments have been addressed in the recommendation memo.
One about me being crazy?
No.
Oh.
No, that they've been given a time frame by which to complete the project.
Yeah, I think we talked about that during our meeting, Richard.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So, Mr. Chairman, with those comments and the assurance in the recommendation, I'd like to move that we approve the project with all the contingencies that have been outlined in the recommendation.
Hold on one second, Brenda. Before we entertain the motion, are there any other comments or questions concerning this application?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, as probably we would all admit, I'm not the tourist representative on this board. I get it. But I look at the past awards that we've given to tourist-related entities, and to me, we're not being consistent in some ways. And I looked at it, and it's a hard project for me to get through, to be honest. But the reality is that I don't want to turn away cultural diversity at this juncture of really looking at the state of New York and the state of the country. I just it's kind of like what swayed me to say that this is something that we should, at least I should support. So sorry, Brenda, for interrupting you.
You weren't interrupting at all.
No, you weren't.
Yeah, we should have the opportunity to dialogue among ourselves because our various points of view could be interpreted by others as having merit that they didn't consider. For example, I had not considered the point that you just made, Dennis. And although I might be crazy, I actually happen to agree with you. Any other comments?
No.
Okay. I will now entertain your motion. Brenda, did you want to make it again?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if you would like. I'm going to make the motion that we move this project for approval with all the contingencies that are outlined in the recommendation.
Do I have a second?
I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? We will note that Deanna abstained. Karen,
Thank you.
my vote was positive based upon the comments that Dennis made.
What a sucker. Oh my God.
Come on, Paul, let's get him.
Yeah.
He's not crazy, but let's get him.
That's okay. Maybe I am crazy. Okay.
Thank you, Dennis, for saving us.
Yeah, Dennis.
Yours was
Thank
much
God for
more
Dennis.
eloquent.
well, we'll see. We'll see if my point of view holds any water in about 13 months. Then our next meeting of this board is on April 7th, 2021. I don't believe that there is any further business on our agenda today. I will therefore call for a motion to adjourn.
Make the motion.
Second, all
Second.
those in favor?
Aye.
Sounds unanimous, Karen. Thanks all. Have a wonderful
Thank you,
afternoon.
everybody. Please stay safe and well.